This video will contain flashing lights and screen shake. Also, I know that many people will be listening to this video while drawing, crocheting, or doing something else in the meantime rather than watching it. So with that in mind, whenever you hear this sound, it means that there's some text on screen or another visual element like a picture that I feel is important. It's just a suggestion, but sometimes these important visuals are only on screen for a few seconds at a time. Or something came to light while editing and I was unable to record a piece for it. I've already spent a good, long effort editing this video, so feel free to take that to note. Or not. I'm not your boss. On May 18th, 2026, the gaming platform known as Steam made a blog post announcing the additions and removals of several tags. Many of these removals were things that made sense due to them having too broad of a scope and overlapping with other topics. For example, the tag "not safe for work" could be applied to just about anything that could have blood, gore, or sexual content in it, depending on what the developers of the game think is necessary. Due to this removal, it makes developers be able to mark things to be more specific to what their game has in it. However, two of the tags that have been removed were something that had sparked outrage in their respective communities: GameMaker and RPGMaker. These two tags were actually game engines, and consumers of the tag would be able to use them to sort through games that were made in those engines. That is, until this removal. These two engines were things that, when used well, can make exceptional games. GameMaker was the engine that was used to create games such as Undertale and Deltarune, whereas RPGMaker was used to create a large slew of well-known yet fairly niche indie games, such as Yume Nikki, Off, and Amori to name a few. However, the vast majority of games made with these programs, specifically RPGMaker, don't do so well. This is often because, due to the simplicity of these programs, devs want to chase after success without ever realizing what made the most well-known games successful in the first place, oftentimes making copies of other IPs such as Dragon Quest or Final Fantasy, thinking they'll make it big. What these devs often don't realize is that in order to have a game similar to these games, yet also be successful, they need to stand out from the crowd. Sadly, the heads of the RPGMaker community don't seem to take this matter well. These are a group of people who are the most well-known players of the community, who've been around for years. Sadly, even though they have experience with knowledge, often their games are just as amateurish as the ones that overpopulate the Steam store tag. The kind of games that are made with low to medium amounts of effort but have nothing unique to bring to the table. The games the heads may make often look fairly unique on the outside due to their art style or pixelated graphics, but these games are often hollow, empty shells of other games in similar styles that not only give you engaging gameplay, but also give you something unique. More often than not, these devs mainly put effort on visuals, yet fail to give substantial effort into other aspects of their games, such as writing, for example. As an RPGMaker dev myself, who's made a unique game in the engine with our team, I have my own experiences with the heads of the community, which I will get into later on in the video. However, these experiences were not good, if you can figure, and well, looking into each of their games and how they behave outside of their games, you may start to see how that is. There are 5 games that we will be looking at today. I will be playing and beating all of them as I go through them, because before I speak of them, I want to go over them fairly, and there's no better way of doing that than completing the games in their entirety. So sit back, relax, grab some popcorn and soda, and settle in while I go through each of the games that the heads of the RPGMaker community have made.
We have our heading.
Here we go!
Shockingly, this is the best looking game I'll be playing for this video. But a good looking game doesn't always mean that it's a good game. In fact, all these games had rather good appearances and art, save for one of them that I just didn't vibe with. The main problem with each of these games is their writing and combat systems, which will be the main things I'll be going over in this video for each of these games. Such is the case with the game that was the clear inspiration for Beloved Rapture, Sea of Stars. Well, Sea of Stars is a gorgeous looking game, and its combat is fresh and exciting, similar to those of Mario and Luigi games such as Superstar Saga, Partners in Time, or Bowser's Inside Story. The internals in the writing department don't share the same heavy lifting as the visuals of combat do. It wears its inspirations of Chrono Trigger on its sleeve without realizing what made Chrono Trigger so good in the first place. Such is the same with Beloved Rapture. Sure, it may be a good-looking game visually, and the music is very well done like Sea of Stars' music was. I'm going to be saying these two things a lot in this video, so bear with me when I say it. But there are things internally that weigh it down, especially in the writing and combat department. The writing for this game is, like Sea of Stars' writing, not good. Except in a different form. What the heck? Why are they all running towards it? They literally could have just... They had the perfect opportunity to run away! What are they doing? What are they doing right here? What? Why? Why? About halfway through the game, I couldn't tell you anything about the main characters except for maybe one defining trait. Johan is a brute, Zack is reckless, Aiden is brave, Trista is... so on, so forth. Speaking of the women, the vast majority are either killed or treated rather poorly, including being called slurs, and considering this is a game written by men and about two gay guys according to the Steam page. Granted, the game prides itself on its LGBTQ representation, yet it's hardly developed or spoken of until near the endgame. It isn't surprising. Combat can be confusing at times and tedious at worst. Unlike Sea of Stars' combat, this game uses an ATB, or action turn-based battle system. Of course, there's normally nothing bad with turn-based combat in RPGMaker games, or turn-based combat in games in general, but the reason why that is for the former case is because people know how to make it unique in their games. Omori is unique because it utilizes teamwork and strategy within its own layout and emotion system. Fear and Hunger is unique because it introduced a new mechanic that adds to the discomfort factor of the game, which is the feeling the game is supposed to give off. Look Outside is unique because its combat not only adds to the game's horror theming and amplifies it tremendously, but gives you a limited amount of time to defeat an enemy, so you need to plan ahead. All these games give you something unique within their combat system to make them stand out from the crowd, but the games I'm speaking of today, not a single one of them makes combat unique or requires a lot of strategy. It's just pressing one button on a menu to spam your strongest attack to see what happens, and maybe healing on occasion. It's rather odd, as for what it appears to be, you seem to have control over your player character when the enemy is attacking, as the arrow points to your character you play as during this time, but you don't. Sometimes, the enemy can attack for 3 turns at a time, and you won't even realize you've missed your turn. You just have to spam the confirm or enter button and see what happens. I had to fight the Wyvern boss 3 separate times because the game had crashed 3 separate times, and when trying to open the game, it gave me this pop-up. Thankfully, this was a false positive, as I had gotten this game from GOG, not Steam. Combat cannot be paused whatsoever. The store page says that there's a wait system, but there's no tutorial on how to use it within the game itself from what I've seen. Level scaling is rather strange, as within the second chapter of the game, you'll automatically have to deal with enemies who will lead you to a game over on multiple occasions. Without having a guide, you'll be lost on how to beat them, as no hints are given and you'll have to beat them in distinct ways, such as equipping a certain item. Healing resources, well, new statues, can be rather scarce, especially in the mid-game, which is bad considering the amount of insanely high-level bosses you'd have to fight compared to your own. This game has a massive problem with flashing lights and screen shake. For the flashing lights issue, there's a rather long puzzle in the mid-game where, when getting hit by a blade or an arrow, which there are a lot of and they're rather hard to avoid, will give you 5 damage and a quick white flash. And it also will push you back a considerable amount, considering how many of these there are and how long this puzzle takes. It's a really bad accessibility issue for those with epilepsy, and there's no warning within the game or the Steam store page that suggests it at all. For the screen shake issue, it happens a lot throughout the game, but only in short bursts. However, there's an entire section where the screen shake will happen for quite a long period of time, about 40 minutes or so. That can be very hard to go through. Again, another bad accessibility issue for those with motion sickness or seizures or vertigo, which, yet again, there's no warning for on the Steam store page. The cutscene to gameplay ratio can get rather distracting, especially around the early game and the endgame. Traversing the map can be a pain as well, as random objects or terrain within the map will block your path in strange ways, making the world feel a bit stilted. And with the game often crashing at the start or end of combat, and even during combat on occasion, this makes things rather tedious as well. While looking at the Steam reviews for this game, something is undeniably clear. The developer has responded to every single negative review, which goes against Steam rules for devs replying to reviews. What may be tempting, not every review needs to be responded to. A developer response will frequently draw more attention than the original statement, potentially turning a small issue into a much larger community discussion. It's also not a good idea to use this feature to refute customer opinions. Your direct attention can be seen as validation or a defensive attempt to silence your customers. As it turns out, the main dev cannot take criticism, which had even been shown within the comments of the RPGMaker.net thread for his own game, which highly likely had a few of my points that I've spoken of here. Sadly, I wasn't able to read this review because it wasn't archived, as the person who had made the review was hounded for it and then had deleted it later. Sadly, this is a very common pattern for the heads of the RPG Maker community. And what better way to point this out than by looking at one of the other games next? Night Shift.
You gotta be kidding me with that crap. Education's where it's at.
This game is a peculiar case. The main dev behind this, Iron Brew, claims to be indie, but actually works for a massive company. A company that, Brew has bragged, sold 2 million copies of a game that he's worked on. Brew is mainly the one who takes credit for the work, sending it off to streamers to play, so on and so forth. This backfires, however, as early on in the game there's a massive accessibility issue for people who have sensitive eyesight or color blindness that, when taken to note, Brew calls a feature, and when warning other streamers about it, Brew calls it undermining his name. So, do with that what you will. So what about the game? Well, it's just like the others here, with an ATB battle system and a story that is more akin to something like Dragon Quest than anything, even showing itself on the title screen. The more you play the game, the more the unoriginalities lie. The monsters in this game are actually called Blokemon, because yes, changing one letter of Pokemon and replacing it with B and L is an original thing to do. Some monsters are blatant rip-offs of Dragon Quest ones, such as the slime, for example, and the main banner used in screenshots of the game is an obvious nod to Final Fantasy. This wouldn't be so bad if it was a fan game, but it isn't. At no point is any of this mentioned on its page. And due to this unoriginality within something that claims to be an original work, it could possibly deter other players. It could work if Night Shift was advertised as a parody of these works, but it's not. Sure, you could imply that it's a parody from the Final Fantasy-like banner, but that's a rather hard thing to spot than the blatantly shown Blokemon and its quest within the quest menu, the title screen, or the slime enemy. So I rest my case. The writing for this game is actually worse than beloved Rapture's. Swearing is so constant that you can't take any of the characters seriously, and text can also be hard to read in many places. It's also confusing in the early game, as characters say they're in heck, spell out that they're in hell, but continue to say hell as a swear while proceeding to call the place heck. If it's a joke to poke fun at small children, it would get a bit of a pass, but these two are grown adults. If anything, it makes the characters look immature. Just call it hell, guys. You've got the pentagrams, you've got the goblin for some reason. Just go all in since you already swear so much. Due to this, it's very hard to care about them or what they're having to deal with. This is especially true with Denzel, as he's the main culprit of this problem. Why should I care about his rivalry with this guy who looks like Lash Deadlock but with red hair when he's the one making me not take him seriously in the first place? Combat is a bit better than the writing, but not by much. The main protagonist's attack is a time attack, but you're only able to hit within the area one time. It isn't like Undertale where you can leave the timed attack on the screen, pause for a bathroom break, and still be able to attack when you finish. And with how fast the bar moves, this makes it rather annoying to deal with. With Denzel's attack, you have to mash the confirm button for an extended amount of time, which, given how often the combat is and how long battles last, and they can last a while, especially boss battles, it'll be tiresome on your fingers at most. Bad for people who have hand problems at worst. And once again, none of these issues, and these are issues due to how frequently they appear, are warned about on the store page at all. Thankfully, it's not as long as the button mashing event in, say, the final boss of Legendary Starfy, but it appears too frequently to ignore. Something like the button mashing event in Starfy only happened once in the game, which makes that portion significant just like the rest of the game. With something like this happening so often in Night Shift, however, it becomes tiring very early on. Some boss battles, such as the Crawdaddy or the Shocktopus, can be confusing as well. Like the combat in Fear and Hunger, these bosses have multiple things to attack, such as legs, claws, or tentacles. But when it says these objects are slain, they don't go away from the enemy, making things get strange really fast. It's clear the devs behind this game didn't understand what made the combat in Hunger so special, just like how beloved Rapture was with its writing, so on and so forth. In the end, it's mainly just a slog that can be confusing at best, and an accessibility issue at worst. Let's try for something that doesn't have as many accessibility issues, shall we? For now, we'll go further into these games with Exile Disc 1.
We saved the city! Just think what might have happened if we didn't tell everyone about the monster!
Exile is an interesting game, and this dev's, Sawyer's, first. His latest game, Silver Days, I had already played a long time before this video started being made. Largely, all my qualms with that game also carry over with this game. Mainly, the writing. I don't know these games have such poor writing, jeez. In almost every interaction the protagonists have with the agents, the main enemies of the game, it feels like a small child or adult playing with their toys. Something like, "Wahahaha, you're not getting away this time. Oh yeah, take this!" Insert overpowered move or logistically impossible feat here. And when this happens just about every time the main three protagonists get cornered by the agents, it starts to become really annoying. By the middle section, I was just yearning for the main three to get captured by the agents just to see what could happen. Why should I care about any of these characters if they're just gonna go full shonen anime mode without any of the depth or training those characters have? It's like they're all Mary Sue's whenever dealing with agents or whatever else the plot calls for it. Oh, what the heck? Sure, okay. It wants to be similar to a shonen anime, but it doesn't understand what makes the characters in shonen anime memorable or exciting. Normally, these characters will have a training arc that allows for you to be able to learn and grow with the characters as you watch them do the same. When characters are already introduced as beings possessing an overwhelming amount of power, and have no real weaknesses because they always seem to succeed in every twist and turn, there's no stakes at all for them, so why should you care what happens? Speaking of things that were overdone, a lot of the humor in this game is the same way. Characters will often have very snarky type of humor, and it would be fine if it were just for one character, like how one of the main protagonists, Sai, talks. And I like how Sai talks, I just wish there were more characters who talked like him. But it's for just about every major agent we encounter, and it gets very annoying very quickly. Combat is, say it with me folks, a turn-based system. Except on the Steam page, it says this is a deck-building JRPG. Why are these guys calling their games JRPGs? These devs are all from the West. JRPGs are Japanese role-playing games. They're exclusively from Japan. That's why it's a subgenre of RPGs. However, this isn't the case. For one thing, where are my cards? All of these are just magic and standard attacks like your standard RPG. And this swapping moves out just feels more like Pokemon, considering it's the same thing there whenever you learn a new move. You can swap it out whenever you feel. Silver Days is more of a deck builder. There you actually collect cards and can swap them out whenever you need to. Even if there, the system is confusing as all get out. There's a type system here like in Silver Days, but it's very hard to tell what moves are what due to the icons on the system. They don't tell you the actual type the move is, they just tell you if it's a magic or a normal move, making things confusing when using the scan move to figure out the enemy's weakness. Speaking of moves, the vast majority of the time, combat is a joke when you have Sai in your party and whenever you have a lot of magic moves there, since she's one of the main protags. This is a given for quite a lot of battles. Very rarely will you have to strategize, and that's mainly due to the fact that some enemies can use your magic moves against you. So your only option is to use physical attacking moves. The main problem there is with this combat system, it leaves very little room for actual strategy, as most players will just spam their magic attacks, which are the moves that deal the most damage, to get battles over with faster so they can focus on the story. This was the problem in Silver Days for me, and it's a problem here. Beloved Rapture at least had a little bit more strategy in its battle system due to having to be able to equip certain items to defeat a singular enemy, but that isn't saying much. There are certain bits within the combat and on the overworld where there are a multitude of flashing lights, which isn't warned about on the Steam page once again. Thankfully, there's an option within the settings to turn off the flashing within the combat, and combat alone, which is a compromise, I guess. But at least it's something. Regardless, there should be a warning on the Steam and store pages for it. Also, battles start on the attack menu, not at the choice to fight or run, making it so that some players who may have stopped playing for an extended period of time may forget that they're able to escape from battles, which really sucks for combat-averse people like myself. This game, similar to Silver Days, has a more pixelized art style whose text boxes are styled to look similar to those within a Game Boy. However, if anything, I feel like it should lean more into this colored aesthetic within the overworld and combat. While I like that in some dream sequences it is, oftentimes there are things that weigh these sections down, such as the music or not having enough time to read through the dialogue, which pains me a little. Sometimes, due to this aesthetic, words during the level up screen, or bars during combat along with the bars in the level up screen, may be hard to see clearly. If it leaned more into this aesthetic, it could be a little bit more unique of an RPGMaker game, though not by much due to its combat system. Alas, such was not the case, so it looks oddly out of place with the color graphics of the game. If anything, its sequel, which is just an expanded version of this game, that's locked behind a paywall, actually abandons this aesthetic in order to go for a look that's a bit easier to read, but not as charming as its predecessor before it, save for the customizable windows, which are a nice touch. Also, the main protagonist uses transphobic slurs there. It really is a bit similar to Beloved Rapture, huh? I have a lot more to say about this game near the end of the video, but for now, let's move on to another game that uses pixel-style graphics, but with a different style of gameplay.
I need healing, and I am only at 1 HP.
Due to the fact that I wasn't able to beat this game for reasons I will speak of in a moment, the footage you'll be seeing here is up to the first boss. Surprisingly, this dev is not one of the heads of the community themselves, like the rest are in this video, but he is one of the people within their friend group that I have had experiences with, as we at Funky Bunny were going to collab with him for a secret boss battle in this game, though not in our own, for realizing what was going down behind the scenes with him. This I'll speak of at the end. It's part of my experiences with this group of people. So, I had to play this game for this video. This game actually looks great, and the music is solid, but again, it's got the same problems as the other games, except magnified to an insane degree. Since I barely know anything about these characters except for that the main protagonist's mother was killed when she was young, and she wants to get stronger because of it. And all I know about the secondary protagonist was that she took the main protagonist when she was a child. I can't really care for them at all. It would have been a lot better if we saw what the main protagonist's life was like before this moment, so we could have had a chance to care about them, instead of skipping until that moment. It would have also been easier to care for the secondary protag if we were to see what her life was like before and after the main protagonist found her, and actually seeing her relationship with the main protagonist before the actual gameplay starts throughout their lives. All we get is a, "I took you in, good night," and some random force going on about helping him for no reason other than to start the gameplay. It's wasted potential, especially when the beginning of the game is the most important part to hook players in. Combat is turn-based, but the only unique thing about it is the way it looks. It's got a sprite layout similar to Magical Vacation's combat system, but that's all it has going for it. The only unique thing that this combat has is what comes after when dying. There's no game overs in this game like a normal RPG, but you have half of your goal left from when you started. However, what comes after dying in this game was the reason why I wasn't able to beat it in the first place. This game is very unfair when it comes to healing. After dying in battle, you return to the chapel and the last time you went to and saved in with 1 HP. To make matters worse, resting in beds doesn't restore HP either, nor TP. Not only does it fail to heal you completely, but it also deprives you of the ability to use TP for your most powerful attacks, which, without potions, is the only way you can heal. Bonus points due to the fact that you can't seem to get anything in stores to restore TP in the early game. As well, I couldn't buy any potions because I had no gold, which you get through combat, and since I couldn't even face the enemies, who appear very often due to the high encounter rate on the map, and with places being rather far from each other, it's very hard to traverse without being killed unless you're lucky. While having only 1 HP, I'm unable to heal myself. I, and other players, would be stuck unless you restarted the game if you were to do this. This was very annoying, and having to be essentially soft-locked from your save file due to this feature is beyond me. The least that could have been done with this is to have HP and TP be restored after dying in battle like every other RPG does. This just pushes artificial difficulty, and it makes the game more frustrating rather than fun to play, which is a shame. For some odd reason, probably due to aesthetic purposes considering the first picture of the controls you see is on an SNES controller, the controls on the keyboard are off compared to other RPG Maker games. And the worst part is, you can't change them. The enter button does not work to press confirm like normal. In normal cases, both the Z button and the enter button work as confirming options in RPG Maker games. However, only the Z button works to confirm something here. The menu button here is S when normally it's X, and when on the title screen, the X button is to pull up the new game continuing options menu instead of the Z button. Not only that, F4 doesn't bring up full screen. You can only do this in the game settings menu, which is also very strange, as none of these controls are explained in the game itself. This button layout is very confusing for those who are used to playing RPG Maker games, or just games on keyboard and mouse in general, and jarring for those who have never played an RPG Maker game before at worst. This is probably the developers, Valen's, first game considering it's all I see on the itch page, and while it is impressive for a first game from its style alone, there's too many things that are frustrating about it for me to complete it in full. Hopefully you can learn from this and try to improve, but given how the rest of the posse is part of reacts to critique, especially when it's meant to be constructive, I highly doubt it.
Ralph's gone turbo.
This game has one thing the rest of these games don't seem to have, and that's voice acting, which is rather good and makes it stand out from the other games on this list. It's an interesting case with this game, as it's not bad, but it's not good either. Plot for this game is fairly similar to shonen anime's Fullmetal Alchemist or Seven Deadly Sins' plot, in which you'll have to fight the Seven Deadly Sins and take their weapons to save the world and whatnot. Personally, the plot didn't grab me, as it felt like a 13-year-old's FMA fanfic, except the sins look fairly similar. The game's visuals make it much more obvious than others it's an RPG Maker game, that being a lot of assets were used from the base models of RPG Maker sprites, just drawn over to give themselves unique hair, clothes, etc. If it had custom artwork, like the best sprites of the level up screen does, it would feel much better. Otherwise, a lot of things clash when compared to the base RPG Maker sprites, and it feels a bit jarring. This mainly applies to the bus sprites and sprites within the level up and pause screen, when being compared to the base RPG Maker sprites and possibly tile sets used within the overworld. The bus sprites and such didn't really grab me. That's okay, I'm not gonna call it ugly or anything. It just feels like a Western attempt at anime style. Few RPG Maker games by the other heads of the community have this style as well, and it also doesn't grab me. But I've already played a bunch of games for this video, and I think you'd get the point by now. At least it's got a training arc this time, unlike Exile, and a few tracks from the OST are slightly better than others. Or as I love folk music, but I wouldn't listen to the OST on my own time. The combat is turn-based, similar to an Octopath Traveler style of combat. Some things could be better explained within it. The boost mechanic wasn't explained all too well. It was just press the boost button and see what happens, as it can break shields, without saying that boosts are unique for different characters. As one gives a damage multiplier for attacking once, but for another it can hit on multiple occasions. It's not as good as Octopath's combat, and it doesn't feel as satisfying as that one does. But it does the job well, and it doesn't overstay its welcome all too much. This system has been done better elsewhere. It doesn't offer anything new to the table that's unique enough for it to stand out on its own from the other iterations of it within other games. However, the main thing I have a problem with is the compass. It doesn't really do a good job of telling you where exactly you need to go. For the first quest game to the Adventurers Guild, I had gotten so lost while using the compass that I had to look up a guide to figure out where I needed to go. Since there wasn't any real way of a mapping system other than the compass, it got annoying very quickly. Not to mention, while I was traveling and during cutscenes when seeing new towns, lag was often frequent, which is odd for an RPG Maker game, but it's probably because there's a lot going on screen. All in all though, this game is rather mid, like it or not. Everything about it, from its plot to its combat, has been done better in other pieces of media and games. That's okay. I'm not gonna stoop down to the level of this dev and the others within his posse and insult actually competently made projects just because I'm not in there. Oops! Who said that?
Suspicious.
I presume this part is the part of the video all of you have been waiting for, so I'm gonna cut to the chase. In just about all the videos on YouTube about the RPGMaker community, it's either people within the community sucking each other off about how good it is without going over any of its problems, or people outside the community complaining about poorly made games within the community, but not the heads. These types of games would happen to be what mainly had populated the RPGMaker tag on Steam before it was removed and caused the engine to be stereotyped as a shovelware slop engine, which isn't exactly true. Good, and even great, games can be made with RPGMaker, but it depends on how those games are made and if they stand out from the crowd of other games to make themselves unique. But nobody has ever made a video talking about the main players of the community though, much less gone to the lengths that I have by playing all their games. And that's a shame, because I feel there should have been a video like the one you're watching right now a long time ago. Anyway, I won't keep you waiting any longer. From early 2025, we were looking for people who would have liked to playtest our game to find any bugs before it released. We were already fairly accustomed to the RPGMaker community by that point, but didn't have much problems with them, because we weren't fairly active there. That is, until someone invited me into the server known as the RPG Beta Tester server, or BTS for short. A lot of the major players of the community are in the server, such as Benny, who's the main code for the RPGMaker.net site right now, and quite a few streamers. Some of the other heads of the community, such as Red Nova, whose game I briefly showed off earlier, aren't in the server, but everyone there knows him and talks about him. This is the same with other people within the community who aren't in the server, even with those who aren't in the community anymore. That's where I come in. Throughout that time I was there within the server, the heads were rather rude and ableist towards me due to the way I speak through text. For the record, I'm autistic. I have a typing quirk, and it makes me comfy to type in the way that I do. The heads within the community knew this, yet still proceed to be ableist towards me anyway. This ableism would get worse in time, as you will see later. I had been playing games just like the ones I had shown off within this video, and very quickly, I had begun to notice a pattern with all of these games I had played. They were all met with the same amounts of universal praise. Why is this, you may ask? Because the server was a little clique. And because I wasn't involved in their clique, our games didn't get the same amount of positive feedback that all the others had gotten. Of course, that doesn't matter. I was there to find others who could help find bugs in the game and playtest it. That's why I was playing testing other people's games. What does matter is that whenever they got the opportunity to playtest our game, the finding of bugs was largely overshadowed by bad faith critiques that were so non-specific and destructive that it wasn't very helpful. Bonus points because the people within the clique had a meltdown over the adult themes within the game, even though, shockingly enough, they're all older than me, like in their mid-20s to early 40s for some, often misconstruing them to the point that what they were saying were simply full-blown lies. Keep in mind, these critiques were given after I had given feedback on their own games, which I was nice towards, maybe even a bit too nice at the time. Some of their critiques were even hypocritical. For example, one person within the clique literally called their game's story frivolous and pointless. And keep in mind, Crimson Snow Deluxe is a story-driven game. This guy wanted his handheld the entire time, when Crimson Snow Deluxe is not a game that's meant to be handholdy. And when given hints, he acted like they were spoilers, and then turned around and made a story-driven horror game that has absolutely no story at all, amongst other examples. After having enough of the ableism towards me, the critiques that were obviously meant to be in bad faith, and the misconstruing of the adult themes within our game, I announced my departure from the server and left the group. However, what I wouldn't know until much later is that things got much worse soon after I had left. Several members of the group would often mock and continue to be ableist towards me to an insane degree, often continuing to misconstrue the events that had happened with me and the server, even going as far as to not only be destructive towards it, but also mock our own game, insulting its art style and one of our voice actors within it. Such mocking and misconstruction of events would often happen to other people who would leave the group for some reason or another. Not only that, but some things within the server would spread outside of its constructs in order to make the people of the clique look good to a wider audience. Remember when I said, I have a lot more to say about this game near the end of the video? Well,
Now pause the movie, cause what I'm about to say to y'all is so damn twisted.
When scrolling down on the Steam page for Exile Disc 1, you see this. This is where it starts to get interesting. Within the server, at the end of every year, Sawyer, the developer of Exile, hosts and judges the RPGMaker Beta Tester Awards, a fake award showcase within the server where people within the clique vote on their favorite games from each other that year. He has been shown to nominate his own game within the clique and possibly vote on it as well, considering he nominates it, even though many members of the clique will often nominate or vote on games that are their own. As well, Exile had won an award 8 times that year, which is insane. This award is not a real award. Sawyer has admitted this himself. But despite this award is still on the Steam store page to this day. This counts as fraud, as he is A, both the host and the judge of this award show, B, nominates and possibly votes on his own game whenever it has the opportunity to show up, and C, the award isn't even a real award. The award show isn't even a real award show, but it's presented on the Steam page in the awards box to this day, pretending as if it's a real award. This is not only fraud, but it's manipulative, making most people who don't know the server think that the game is good just because it's won an award, when that award that was won wasn't even a real award at all. As I was editing this video, Sawyer's made a spin-off of Exile for a game jam, and that award is still on the Steam page as well. Considering the spin-off has been made for a game jam, specific things about it, like character portraits, have been made noticeably worse, not showing the faces of the characters at all like in the original game, but with just a sized-up version of the character sprites as a face sprite, which is rather lazy in my eyes, especially since he already has that face sprite assets for every character who had one within the original game on the ready through Steam's Project Update folder.
I want that one. You want the Yastai's healing salad?
Yeah.
What I find interesting with each of these cases, throughout all the games I've played for this video, is that they all have one thing in common. They care about visual and sound appeal, but they lack the soul that makes things great. Visuals and music are not the only thing that makes a game good. You need to care about writing, and you need to care about making things stand out from the crowd. You need to put a lot of work into making each of these characters worth being invested to, and you need to put a lot of work into understanding what makes the inspirations you have so special, so you can put a spin on it and make it unique in your own way. I want to like these games. I do. But it's very hard when not only do the developers not have a good grasp of understanding what makes others like games they've made work so well, but the developers behind these games are some of the rudest, disrespectful people I've ever met hiding behind nice guy masks. That's why it makes me so disappointed to see the praise that randos will give these games on their store pages, as a lot of these reviews are by the clique itself in order for the 10 review threshold to be reached, so they can get a positive score. Because it shows that not only do people not tend to do their research, but they don't care enough to value good writing or uniqueness within the games they play, just like the clique. The only goal for them is to make it big. But when you don't understand the meat and potatoes behind that goal, you'll get yourself nowhere. And you'll never escape that bubble unless you start to use your head to not only improve your game's writing, but to improve upon yourself and stand out among the crowd. And you can do that. And you can do that right now if you just stop and analyze. Treat people the way you want to be treated and take off the rose-tinted glasses. You'll see things much clearer that way. There are much better indie games that you can play that aren't by people who treat others in their community unfairly and actually understand the soul that games need to stand out. If you want to play an indie game with SNES-style graphics but with fun and engaging combat, play Crosscode. If you want to play an indie game with Game Boy-styled elements and interesting characters, play Escaped Chasm and Dweller's Empty Path. If you want to play an indie game that's got that Newgrounds feel to it, play Newgenics. If you want to play an indie game that's a little bit similar to older NES RPGs like Ghostline or Star Tropics, play Doki Monsters Quest or Moonstone Island. Or if you want a side-scroller NES-styled game, play Fallen Leaf or Kira Kira Star Knight. And if you want an indie game that's got a bit of a style similar to shonen anime, play Unsighted. Or if you don't want to play an indie game, play Naruto Path of the Ninja for the Nintendo DS. Hopefully, you like these games as much as I do, and if you don't, that's fine too. Thanks for watching, and have a good night.